Welcome to Emotional Intelligence Simplified. This is a weekly podcast focused on demystifying and discussing what emotional intelligence is. Hi, welcome to EI Simplified, the podcast, where we seek to demystify emotional intelligence and show you just how much of an essential skill it is. I am your host, Angela Mwehaki, and Vicky Karuga is back.
Yes, thank you very much again.
Yeah.
Mihaki, it's always a pleasure to be here.
It's good to have you here because today we are going to answer some of the frequently asked questions that we have received from our listeners.
Okay.
So let's start with number one. So, what is emotional intelligence and why is it so important for leaders?
I'll start from like a bit of the background. Maybe the point to start from is where in the era of social science, people started realizing that there were other competencies other than IQ, intelligence, yes, that seemed to account for people's success in life. So they noticed that these intelligences had actually to do with emotion.
Okay.
And that is very important, that they had to do
With
emotions and the ability to manage them, the ability to be aware of them, to reason with them, to use them to your advantage and to use them to enforce your productivity and even that of others. So, but what was important about the recent studies is that these abilities were just like language. You know, like the way for you to become better at math, you have to keep practicing.
Yes.
Exactly. So these abilities were important because in the same way, they could be developed. So you could learn to be better. You could learn to be better at managing your moods, your emotions. And it was just about finding out how do people who we see being successful at managing their own emotions, at managing the emotions of others, what are those things that they use? What are the tools that they use? And so in a nutshell, that is emotional intelligence, the ability to be aware of our moods, our emotions on a broader spectrum, to be aware of our personalities, our strengths, our challenges, and to grow in that awareness, and then to be able to use this information to make more better and more effective decisions about ourselves, and also to be aware of others. Social awareness, to be aware of other people's moods, their intentions, what they mean, reading the room, so to speak, to be able to manage these emotions both in yourself and in someone else. And this is, for example, a very simple explanation is how politicians are able to rile up a crowd. That's managing your emotions.
It's true. They know they have to say the right words to get people moved.
Exactly.
Okay.
And you can do that. So if you are intentional, you can intentionally use that skill. For example, in our setting at work or in the family for your children. And you can understand how do you support the people around you to manage their emotions more effectively so that you're getting a better result. And some of these things are like, when your child is angry, you understand how not to get angry with them because the result of that is not always the best. But how do both of you navigate that anger to be able to understand it, and for the child to understand that anger is not a bad thing, but it is an indication that yes, there's something that needs to be done, but you don't have to throw a tantrum. But that they have to learn to manage the anger because it's not always inherent that it is a skill. For me, my biggest aha moment and insight in EI was the fact that I could learn to do these things. I had always thought for a very long time that it's just the way it was. So I would
say, either have it or you don't.
Yeah. I would say things like, but that's just the way I am. I get angry often. And I know I'm supposed to count 1 to 10, but I would discount the fact that, I would blow up at some point. Now that continuous intentional development of trying to get better at being aware of my moods, my emotions, how they're affecting my productivity, how they are affecting other people around me. I would say managing them, using them to reason, like the way you wake up in the morning, you're not feeling like your proper self, but if you listen to a motivational speaker,
to get you into the right
he'll move
frame
you
of mind
from point A to point B. That's understanding how to use or cultivate a different emotional climate. And in the space of like mindfulness and meditation, being able to get into that Zen area to gain clarity, because when you're not certain and you're not clear, it's difficult to, that's an unpleasant emotion right there. So I've digressed, but
But
why?
I like that because what we're telling people, one, it's emotional intelligence. EI is all about managing your emotions. And I think the silver lining, no, the golden lining here, if there ever was one, is that it's something that can be acquired and improved over time.
Yes.
Unlike IQ, this is something you can work on, you can be conscious about and get better and better about it.
Yes.
And that indirectly also, in turn, affects your relationships with others and leads to more productivity.
Yes.
And happier people.
Yes.
Okay, so let's look at number 2, well, which is where they're leading us back to. How does emotional intelligence differ from traditional intelligence, IQ, in leadership?
Okay, so there's so much written about intelligences. Like if you Google intelligences, there's spatial intelligence, there is social intelligence. Nowadays, I even hear there's positive intelligence, there's spiritual intelligence. There's so many
So is there
intelligences.
negative intelligence?
Negative
No, if
intelligence.
there's positive, I don't know. Okay.
I don't know. Yeah. So I think a significant difference is that it involves more about ourselves, our feelings,
Yeah.
and getting in touch more with them and with other people. Traditionally, remember, we were taught leave your emotions
At the door.
the door.
If you go to work, leave them at the gate. Coming
Yes.
to work.
Yes.
When you're leaving, pick them.
Yes. And now, more than ever, we understand that we are not logical creatures with feelings. We are feeling creatures who reason.
Oh,
So
because people say, I'm a very logical person. It's not. We're feeling
We
people who reason.
feeling is primitive to us. You cannot get rid
It's
of
inherent. It's part of who we are.
Yes.
So the reason is the acquired.
The reason came later. The logic came later. So learning how to, or rather trying to and reduce the impact of your emotional brain or capacity to hinder logic and reasoning. So when we experience really difficult emotions, we freeze, we withdraw, and it could vary. Difficult circumstances can vary for everyone from, real danger to just not liking someone. So if I don't like you, the decisions I make about meeting you, maybe I withdraw from you, I talk badly behind your back
and put up a wall.
Put up a wall. And that's a conscious decision. The fight, the flight, it's an emotion driving that decision. Never mind that you're my boss and you're speaking my name in rooms that I possibly will never be there. Never mind that you're my boss and you could really be an awesome mentor for me or coach. Never mind that you're my boss and you affect my environment in significant ways. So I think traditionally, and thinking about IQ as that intelligence that allowed us to thrive, but now understanding that it's more wholesome than that.
Because we need more than just knowledge, book knowledge,
Yes.
to thrive.
Even
you need the social skills and everything else.
Even learning in itself is an emotional thing.
It's true.
Yeah.
I mean, maths was a challenge because one of my teachers was not a very. We did not have good feelings towards them, so I put a block.
Yes, as a child, you're not aware.
True.
Yes, yeah. So that's what I would say.
Okay. Now, number 3, can somebody with strong emotional intelligence be an effective leader? Someone without EQ.
Yeah, they can learn. To say that someone without IQ is to assume first that there's
emotional intelligence. There are people who seem to have emotional intelligence and social skills. Is that the same thing?
It's a component of it, EI.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. There's relationships, relationship building, relationship management as a component of emotional intelligence. Yeah.
So a person without emotional intelligence, can they be a good leader?
I think also there's this sometimes feeling or thinking that when you lack emotional intelligence, you lack it like you have 0. So, but that's not necessarily true.
You could be very visionary.
Yes, it means I find most of the time people lack a component of it, which is why measuring it is very important. You can't total lack. Okay, maybe you can, but
so far you haven't come across that.
I have come across.
So there are those who lack it kabisa,
but there are few.
0.
Those are the outliers, and usually it's because maybe 1 or 2 components are so strong that they even mask the other. Yes, the other components. That's what I think.
Okay, from your experience, those 2, can they be good leaders? Those who lack kabisa.
Usually, let's not say good. because good and bad have
Okay, now
other
let's use the word
connotations.
effective.
Effective. So they might not be as effective as they could be if they put in some 2 or 3 elements to grow in, maybe, so say, their self-awareness,
Okay.
how they impact others. So that would be, for me, the significant difference. So I feel that people are not totally lacking EI.
Okay.
They have certain components that they might be good at or great at, and certain components that they possibly need work on. Some of them may be causing significant distress around. So when you, from a point of self-awareness, assess yourself for how high your IQ is, or even how low your IQ is, or what are your areas of your blind spots, then you can grow your EI.
Because IQ can be measured. Can we measure EI?
Of course we can. We measure it all the time. At Profiles, we work with organizations and measure even the collective emotions, what's happening in organizations. We measure how, for an individual, what are their current levels? Because you remember, it's something that's grown. So what are your current levels in terms of EI? And it's a broad spectrum. It's not just one thing. One of when conducting one of the trainings, I remember one of the things that we were asking is, do you keep time, or how is your time management?
Okay, let's look at that.
Yeah, it's a very simple thing and people take it for granted. And so someone asked me, so how is time management part of EI? But you see, EI is a concept.
Yeah.
But there are certain behaviors we find are consistent with people who are high in emotional intelligence.
Okay.
And effective time management is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So when we are measuring, we're actually looking at what are the behaviors that have been to be consistent with people who display high levels of emotional intelligence, people who guys have rated that they're effective in terms of being a manager, effective
a leader, yeah,
in terms of even being a colleague. Like I say, I like that guy. He's a wonderful colleague. He supports us. He calls us out when we have crap stuff. But at the same time, we can view him as the I mean, if you took a poll, there's that one guy.
He's the guy who gets those ticks.
Yes, there's that one guy. So now I've even lost my train of thought.
No, we're just like, because we were talking about effective leadership, and then we said things like, and how it can be measured. So we are saying there are ways.
Yes.
And that's something you do. And I'm hearing a lot of corporates these days are also looking at developing those skills in their leaders.
And even not corporates, even you and as individual. Yeah. You just have to reach out to us. There's a link, I'm sure, that will be shared at the bottom of this podcast. And you can have your EI measured, and you can even go on and have an EI coach work with you to develop the areas that need development, and voila.
So like we're saying, if you're wondering really how the levels of your emotional intelligence, get in touch with us and we'll tell you just how easy it is to get an assessment. And from there, chart your growth forward. So let's look at the next one. In what ways does EQ influence a leader's ability to inspire and motivate their teams?
Okay. So this one, I'll quote Zuhura, who's a co-facilitator. And the first thing about EI is to manage others effectively and to influence them effectively and sustainably. There's also the other part of sustainably is that you have to do quite an amount of work internally.
True.
So as you grow in self-awareness, then you grow in understanding how parts of you motivate, how parts of you demotivate. Yeah. You understand your key strengths when these things, when we're talking about like, what are you going to do about motivating and influencing? Motivating and influencing sustainable is not about clapping for people and, being that champion. And that's another thing that's commonly confused, because guys think that the more charisma I have, the higher emotional intelligence I have. But the truth is, guys who are high in EI also call out, they effectively are able to call out bad behavior, inappropriate behavior. They hold people to higher standards. They can say no. They can have a difficult conversation easier. And that's one of the things I think we struggle with. I know definitely that's one of my areas of
completely
growth.
Difficult conversations are
being
difficult
able to convey, I am not happy about this work, or I'm not happy about the way things are going, but do it in a manner that allows that person also to question themselves. Says, I think I want to do better next time. Yeah.
So we're not yelling and being
Exactly.
causing mayhem.
Yes. So again, I lost my train of thought. But remember, coming back, that ability then to be seen as dedicated to, you have that one person who you've encountered in your life who seemed dedicated in some sense to your growth, who seemed invested in you. Even if when you used to see them 2 to 3 times, you'd feel like whenever you encountered them, there was some positivity,
Yes.
towards that encounter. And to some sense, that's how leaders with high EI are able to influence and to motivate and to help people discover the purpose of the work that they're doing so that they can feel that they are contributing to whatever it is. Even in a family, to help everyone understand their value in that family, to help, or rather to aid and support in the growth of each individual. And sometimes how in farmers things are not always like straightforward.
Everybody's different.
Everybody's different.
Yeah.
So in the workplace, it is creating that first sense of purpose with clarity, being able to communicate that, having space for questions, real meaningful questions and meaningful engagement, being interested enough and devoted enough to people to even suggest things that grow them. So at the end of the day, when I'm done, when I'm done with working wherever I am, I'm like, you know what, this person pushed me, but I am glad to be the person that I am right now. And there'll always be a champion for me. I feel like I have someone who has my back. And it's not like, like we're not saying kumbaya and all that.
It was constructive. It was...
Yes, exactly.
It had a flow to it.
Yeah. So you kind of have to have a sense of security as well sometimes in yourself to not lose yourself. Because some of the things I hear leaders or people saying in why they may not want to invest in deep relationships with, and I don't know why they're deep, with possibly people they lead, is that they feel they're challenged. The authority might be challenged. They might not be taken
Like, get too
seriously,
familiar.
and people might get too familiar with me. So how do you draw that boundary and still not seem distant?
Yeah, actually, that balance of being aloof and being present.
Yeah.
So let's look at now an interesting thing. What are the benefits of incorporating emotional intelligence in decision making and conflict resolution?
Okay. So again, back to self-awareness.
Again, yeah, you have to understand yourself.
Yes.
It's the pillar.
But even more importantly is that emotions will influence our decisions. And I'm sure everyone is familiar with this thing of confirmation bias. I was watching a movie yesterday, and then a very old movie, it was called The Sentinel. And then the investigator asked the police, this is the Secret Service, asking the police what they thought. And the police said, someone stole the wallet. And someone stole the wallet. And the guy said, you see, the problem of having an opinion is that then whatever facts you find, you discount everything that does not come to support your opinion. And so you only notice the facts that support that particular opinion that you feel so strongly about. And it's the same as decision making. When we are not aware about how sometimes we are biased in the way that we make decisions, how our emotions drive our decisions, because they do. Yes, they do. And in fact, I think in one of the previous episodes, we have shared this and talked about this in the emotional reasoning podcast, the segment, about how science now shows that it is difficult for you to make a decision if you don't feel an emotion towards that decision. So being able to interrogate, what are the emotions in play for me here? What are the emotions in play for other people as well? Because that's how you make a decision. And then no one agrees with it, but they just, they nod at the table, and then you wonder why things are not happening because you were not aware of
what was going on.
Of what was going on. So it becomes important in as guys finding out what's driving our decisions, what emotions are driving our decisions. It becomes important because the more we grow in EI, actually the more consultative we are, the more aware we are that if we are making a decision ourselves, then we are possibly not taking advantage of the collective intelligence that is around us that could make the decision even a better decision. So I would say in a long-winded story. Yeah.
That's how it manages it. And what about the conflict resolution bit?
So conflict resolution, again, like in negotiation, reading the room, reading the cues, understanding when to back out, understanding when to lean into the conversation, understanding that avoiding the conversation is not
Doesn't go anywhere.
conflict resolution, sensing the emotions, the difficult emotions that are in play for both you and the people involved, and knowing what to do about them. Because you see, if you're not aware of your triggers, for example, I know there's one word you tell me, and that conversation just gets lost. We were talking nicely, someone says some matope word, and that's the
You
end.
switch off.
The whole
It's
thing
done.
is, yes, it's done. And sometimes it's good because you all fight, you disappear, you go your own way, you simmer down, maybe you have time to think about it, but then someone else has to bring us back together. Because if you don't resolve conflict, you will still carry them everywhere. And they still affect many other decisions that you're going to make, especially like now if you're at the workplace where you're meeting people constantly.
Exactly. And they're coming with different duress.
Yes.
Maybe I have problems at home, or I'm having problems with other people.
Yeah. So it
So
constantly weighs down on you, contributing to your overall stress levels, your emotional bandwidth. Now, workplace mediation has become a thing because of just how much it upsets or derails processes. I mean, you find that we have an idea, but because we don't agree, nothing will ever move. Or if you say this, I kanyangia your decision just because, we had a conflict that we never resolved. So it can be responsible for a lot of setbacks in organizations.
yeah, you definitely.
And the more we train guys for EI, the better effective communicators that they become, the more they are aware of how their own emotions derail the process and how they can manage other people's emotions as well. And you found this with leaders, tempered, steady, forthright at times, but effective in terms of coming to the table, whether it's unions, but there'll be that other one person who will show up and, well,
Just takes it all south.
yeah.
Okay, so now we can see here, because if you have to be able to understand others and look at things, you have to have that perspective we're saying of being calm enough to overcome your emotions, to be able to see the situation objectively,
Yeah.
and try and build bridges rather than, reduce the connection. So, how does emotional intelligence contribute to building high-performing teams?
In many ways. Starting from self-awareness, a team
Yes.
becomes aware of their strengths.
Yeah.
They become aware of other people's strengths. They understand how to communicate better, how to communicate easier. If we talk about authenticity, or generally creating what we call psychological safety, there's a book. I can't remember the name of the author, but there's a book on psychological safety, and he says, I think it's actually a guy called Timothy. I think he says, creating psychological safety in an organization is almost impossible without emotional intelligence. So there's a whole plethora of of benefits and reasons why people who invest in teams that are invest in emotional intelligence for their teams, either constant training and upskilling, assessing, they see better production. I'll give a very simple case study of a client we're working with, and one of the things that they saw was, as a result, is that the people put on performance management actually reduced. I don't know whether it was as a result of the fact that the managers were now being able to manage them better, or that the people themselves now are able to show up better. That I don't know yet, but there is a lot of evidence to suggest that it does. Let me give you another example. And this is something we're talking about with one of the teams. When you're in actually with one of the general practitioners, when you're in a park, what do you remember? What do kids remember?
Well, it depends on what kind of park they went to. Like if you went to
Luna Park.
the what do you call those things?
Yes.
The
Where they
different
have-
games
yes,
and
yes,
activities.
yeah. Mhm.
That's what they'll remember.
That's what they remember. They had a great time.
Yeah.
But then they also had to line up. They also had to fall. They
True,
also
they had to wait
in
on the
fact,
lines.
if you look at the whole experience, chances are that like 60% of the experiences are not so positive. But the ones that stand out are the really great experiences, the memorable experiences. So case in point, you go to a restaurant and you're trying to order meat and like beef or something. So you're asking the waiter, which one should I order? And he tells you, they're all nice.
Yeah, yeah. They're all very good.
They're all very nice. And this gentleman was telling us that, it's even better to have a bad review than to have a meh. Meh is not even memorable. But all it takes is for someone to tell you to just pay a little extra attention. It's not even a lot, just a little kidogo. And that makes a difference in whether you're going to eat at that restaurant, and even more so whether you're going to say, hey, but that restaurant is amazing. It didn't take like rocket science moments. Yes, they have to sit there, they have to wait for the meal, they have to do banter, but their waiter had kidogo memorable moments, like 3 or 4.
They touched a code.
And yes, that's it. And if you find some of these restaurants, they found ways of putting these little memorable experiences in your experience overall. Like giving you sweets to your kids. Then your kids, all they want is to go to that restaurant for sweets. Never mind that you wait for 30 minutes for a table.
I like that. I'll not forget that one of the park, because I'd never thought about it that way. That sometimes what dwells is the perfect bit, the nice happy bit. You didn't think about having to queue for a long time, or you fell and you twisted your knee, or you were hungry, or what. But you went like in that banana boat, the one that goes like that, and you're like, yeah,
and I want to go back.
And that applies to us in so many ways.
In so many ways, yeah.
You're applying for a job, you go through all the butterflies and everything, or you're starting a project. You remember the success, you don't remember the hard work and the pain and the tension and the stress.
Yes.
Wow. Now, let's look at what are common challenges that leaders face when trying to apply emotional intelligence in the workplace. Yeah, this is an important one.
Lack of self-awareness. Because if, that's normally a big one. Sometimes people don't want to be assessed. I think it's sometimes fear.
It is
more
fear.
than arrogance, yes. The fear of being seen as less than. Like I was saying, the fear of being challenged, that my authority will be undermined. The fear of being seen soft, because again, people think that EI is a soft skill. So sometimes organizations get that pushback. What will this thing do for us? I mean, it's just this fluffy thing about emotions. And so, I mean, what difference does it make? So it requires you to delicately sell it and to sell it in a manner that shows the actual difference that it makes, rather than a motivational or inspirational session that people are going to have. It requires time. People don't have time sometimes. So they will ask you to come and do a 1 or 2 hour. Sometimes, imagine 1 hour. I mean, 1 hour is just raising awareness, and it's not even enough. So because it's not considered a priority, then the time invested is way too little. EI coaching is a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that inability to also put resources towards adequate resources towards upskilling for EI is another challenge. And then you find the lack of proper certification sometimes, or knowledge in terms of the persons who are looking at EI could limit it. Because a lot of the times guys have been, oh, Vicky, come do a training. I'm like, so how much time do you have for me? You're like, 1 hour. I'm like, for
it's
EI.
Not enough.
You're like, yeah, you just come and tell us what EI is. Like, but that's not the whole scope of emotional intelligence. It's not a 1 hour thing. So again, I think that awareness, that maybe lack of that awareness, that it is a lot. And it is developing habits that help that culture of emotional intelligence start to grow.
I like that. So it's actually developing. And that's what we said from the very beginning. The good thing about emotional intelligence is that it can get better and it grows if you put effort.
Yeah.
So it's like you and playing the piano or swimming. If you put effort, you keep excelling, you get better.
Yeah.
So now we know that's how it helps. Now, can EQ help leaders manage stress and avoid burnout? And how? Because, sometimes truly being a leader running teams is really exhaustive.
Yeah. And that's because a lot of the work that you do as being a leader is mental work. So mental work, of course, is exhausting. It involves your emotional bandwidth a lot of the times. You're managing your own emotions, those of others. So I do believe being able to manage yourself is actually very important, because it's only when you have enough bandwidth that you can show empathy, that you can try and create psychological safety, that you can consult others on decision making, that you can, it's only when you have that bandwidth. And so, how self-management, managing your moods and your emotions, is just not about me being angry and containing my anger. Self-management is the daily ritual of ensuring that you have enough to keep yourself resilient. So when you talk about resilient, it's the art of bouncing back. But we all have limits. And if you're not constantly cultivating your bandwidth and keeping it at a certain level, you will not take the stress. So you'll not be able to come in. You'll crash. So self-management is actually a skill. What do you do every day to, for example, engaging in exercise is building your self-management.
Because then, discipline.
Yeah, and being disciplined and consistent. It's helping you develop a body that can carry you. And by the way, I was watching another video that said it doesn't matter who you are, what you are, your weight, your size, or everything. It's just the act of exercise, the act of moving your body. Yeah. Eating well, eating right. So we're going to have another whole session on self-management, but there's a whole lot more under self-management than just that it's managing my emotions. And if you go through the whole spectrum of self-management, then you are able to show up better, consistently as resilient for your teams.
I like that. So, wow. So now this is a big one right now.
Mm-hmm.
How can EQ help leaders cultivate how can EQ help leaders navigate cultural and generational differences with teams? Right now, we're fighting with the Gen Zs and the Alphas, and that lot and this lot. How does it help you, manage these things? Because it's there.
Yeah.
And it's a part of life. I mean, even we also with the previous generation have had our battles.
Yes.
Yeah. How does EQ give us the ability to do this more gracefully? Look like that swan gliding in the lake, but underneath it,
yeah. You're doing the hard work. Yes. Yeah. One thing that helps us navigate cultural differences or generational differences is actually empathy.
Empathy.
Yes.
Right.
That's one key competency that helps us navigate all the differences we see around us. Because empathy means that I have to recognize your perspective as your truth. So I have to understand that's how you're seeing the problem.
I was wondering.
Yeah, not judging you, but so in fact, the second one says staying out of judgment. So you think this is a green book. I think it's a blue book.
Depends on, the shade you're seeing.
But that's how you're seeing it. I can't just tell you, Kwani, how stupid are you? You don't know colors. You know, I went to school. I'm judging you. So the recognizing, for me to practice true empathy is understanding that you have a perspective, an opinion. It's probably driven by your value system, your belief system, your experiences, all that about a certain situation. So even the generations, something driving that. Recognizing it as their perspective doesn't mean you're taking it as yours. Yeah. Staying out of judgment. And then being able to understand and recognize emotion in other people and being able to talk about it. And that's in a video by Brené Brown. But for me, I look at it like really deeply wanting to understand where people are coming from. Before, in fact, seek to understand before. It's a Stephen Covey. Before you understood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, seek to understand beforehand. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think if the act of empathy, which is not a woye, which is not
which is not sympathy.
Yes.
It is not woe. What I do
helps you understand more so that you can make more effective decisions. So, for example, someone may feel like working from home is the best use of
that's a big
time.
beef right now.
Yes.
People are not understanding why do you want to work from home?
Me, I want to see you because
there's an office. Yes, I want to know you're here and you're focusing. I have equipment, I have everything.
And it is my need.
Yeah.
Not
For me,
your
I
need.
need, it's
It
true.
is my need.
As the leader, you're
Yes.
feeling, if I can see my people, I know they are working.
And it is a need that I have.
Right.
How do I communicate my need to show you it is a need without making your need feel stupid? So how do we come to that compromise? Because I have to then understand what is your need.
Why do I want to work from home?
Yeah. What's driving that?
I tell you, one, I don't have to come through traffic. That saves me a lot of time, 1 or 2 hours in the day.
Yeah.
And the fact that I am home, maybe I can even start working from 7.
Yeah. And
I can put in maybe a few more hours. I can start early. I can work at 7, finish at 3.
And then we can come to a compromise. Okay, fine. So you work these days, I need to see you because also, for me, physical connection is important. I need to talk to you in a meeting or something, and we need to, and that way we can come up to something that works that
is good
on
for
your
both
needs.
of us.
And at the end of the day, what do we want?
We want
results.
Yeah.
How do we measure them so that they're not being affected? Because that's a key thing. It's not you, it's the results. So how do we ensure that we've compromised, yes, but the one thing that we're working towards is we're able to measure it. It's clear, it's precise. If we have check-in meetings at 8 to 8:30 every day, they're clear, they're precise, communicating with clarity, because now I understand what you want and what I want. Yeah. So I think empathy is
very key.
Is very key. Yeah. And it doesn't mean, like I said, it's not letting people get away with murder. It's listening to the whole story, from end to end, and understanding that story, and then now being able to use it to make better and more effective decisions. So it's cultural, like these guys who say, who was saying some cultures speak fast, others speak slow, others want to deliberate overnight.
You have to think about it.
But if you don't understand it, you judge it from your perspective. So
because that's the only one you have.
That's the only one you have.
So even like trying to understand, like, because I know that one of working at home and working at work has had a bit of a push and pull, you know, or dealing with the younger ones who, see things very differently from us.
Yes.
They want it instant. And you're thinking, but it takes time.
Yes.
And they keep telling us about working smart, not hard.
So how do you communicate that effectively?
So you have to be able to have that dialogue and understand where they're coming from. And hopefully get them to understand where you're coming from.
Yes.
Because as a leader, really, it's more of understanding them.
Otherwise, you'll make decisions and people will put their hands in their pocket and they will not do them, and you'll wonder why no one is engaged.
Okay. So now let us also look at improving engagement and productivity through emotional intelligence.
So what I've seen companies now doing more and more of, before you would do an engagement survey, organization-wide to all the people, then you get the results. But what I've seen companies do more and more of is personalize those surveys to departments and personalize those surveys to managers. So the question here is...
Okay, the department I get, because our goals are different.
Yes.
And our objectives are different. If it is sales, we're doing sales. Technical is doing, making sure systems work. So yeah, that's fine. What about managers? Because what if it is the personality of the manager that's the challenge? Leadership.
Yes. And so if you have a low engagement score, then we have to take you to school to understand how to motivate and influence people and keep them engaged. Because like I said, it's a skill. You learn it. Sometimes you may not have it. So we can't always assume that you've already failed and we haven't done anything about it. So personalizing engagement to managers means that then managers are going out of their way to effectively lead people.
Because you could have been given a promotion to a manager,
but you're not ready.
But you were not trained
that people
on
are your
leading and managing people,
which are your biggest asset.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I found that that's happening. That's a trend that's happening. And when you personalize it to engagement to a manager, you make it his or her problem to ensure that people that they are leading are engaged, as well as the numbers being delivered. That means you're putting people outcome and also the organization's strategy outcomes, the tangibles and the people, in a measurable way. And you're saying they're both important.
So even if you're a manager and you've been wondering if you're effective or not, this is a good time to check it out on your own.
Yes.
Have an assessment done so that we can check on your leadership, then see what areas you need to improve.
Yeah.
And Profiles can do that.
Of course.
Absolutely. So yeah, for this and more, make sure you do visit the Profiles East Africa website for more details on some of these things. So now let us look at how can leaders embed EI principles into an organization's culture? Because that's the hardest thing, getting people when they come in to understand the culture and to adopt it. How do we do that?
Make it important first.
You're making it sound like it's obvious, but how do
I
you?
know, no, but make
How
it
do you make it important?
You first have to see it as important, because a lot of the places, so people be like, yeah, people are very important asset. We really want to develop them, but the resources you have for developing the
HR like
softer
this.
side of life, is minimal.
Or you do the usual.
It's almost zero.
You do the token
Yeah,
team building once a
yes.
year, and you think that's enough.
And that's enough. So you have to make it important.
So if your human resource is if your people are the most important, factor in things. So what are the things we should do other than that?
Training is one of them.
Yes.
Simple way. Train your leaders, because it starts at the top. Train them for the elements of culture that you want to see that are embedded in the components or competencies of emotional intelligence. Coach them as well. Let them be also coaches and mentors and trainers to the people that they're leading in terms of the behaviors they display that speak to emotional intelligence. Do assessments. Don't just train blindly. Do assessments. Let people understand where they are in terms of their own journey in emotional intelligence and how it's impacting the people that they are leading. Do a company-wide campaign, like the way we have, and it doesn't even have to be big companies. You can SMEs, MSMEs, having like an engaging session, those small 1 hour sessions that you have with your team. Speak about these things. Speak about what behaviors you want to see and that are rewarded, that fall under the component of EI that you would like to see.
Like we start with time management.
Yes. Time management. Show up. Plan your time. If you're having a problem, get a mentor who's going to help you audit how you spend or how you arrive or your routines and everything, and see if you can get better. Yeah. So conduct these things often and frequent. Don't do it one-off and think that
once a year.
So conduct it. Be consistent to it. Speak to it. Measure it. Have people measure each other in that setting that you have. And with time, it becomes the norm. Yeah. So you're just raising your EI a little notch at a time. So even the big organizations, train for it, coach for it, reward for it.
So when we talk about reward, what are we talking about here?
It would be different. I'll give you one way that we've done it. Empowering managers to be trainers or to be coaches. Delivering company-wide, this was a large organization, company-wide sessions, little webinars for about 3 months consistently with the same message, getting people to bring themselves to these conversations and understanding how they are contributing to higher EI or not, taking the managers through a more rigorous program because their relationship is one to many, so they're affecting more. So you'd have to plan out the whole initiative with whoever, with the person interested, but it is done. And then now picking habits, that reinforce whatever it is that you're looking for. For example, team buildings are important. How often do you do them is a question. Is it one a year? Or at least do your teams get to meet informally in different sessions?
Other places, there are other things you're doing.
Yes. So what other habits are you cultivating? Or routines are you cultivating in your teams, your smaller teams, to push or grow EI, bring people together, create that psychological safety, recognize someone else is not doing so well at work, show up in empathy, recognize other people's hard work and achievement, communicate your vision with clarity, communicate. And when you finish communicating, communicate some more. Because it's not always apparent about your vision. You have to keep talking about it. That is why if you listened to the old war films, the propaganda was always out.
Throughout. By the way, it was in the documentaries, it was in everything.
Propagate your propaganda. It's a good vision. So don't imagine that you'll be seated here and you've hired people and you told them we're going to Mecca and you keep quiet. No, you have to remind them, why are you there? What are we hoping to achieve? What's the bigger dream? Keep people reminded. Eyes on the prize. What are they doing? What have they achieved? Don't get tired. Now, for you not to get tired, you need to invest in self-management, because if you're not taking care of yourself, ain't no way you're going to show up to motivate others. So There it is.
I like that because I'm thinking that this is even needed more in the MSMEs as you grow. Because if you can create that culture, then
Actually, in the MSMEs, it does very well. They're there, they're present, they're talking. But as they grow,
they forget, they relax.
yes, they relax, and they're seen less and less of. So that common shared vision or purpose may fall through the cracks. So being present, walking the shop floor. Yeah.
Now, are there industries or certain roles where we feel that emotional intelligence is more critical for leadership success?
I wouldn't say so, but I do know that certain professions require more emotional labor, if I'm to put it that way. For example, the healthcare.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah, teaching.
Teaching, yeah, it's a gift.
It's a gift.
You need to be able to be able to handle, and especially as the kids get older.
Yes.
And now you have that, like generational challenges, campus, high school.
Yeah, so I think there is a need to invest more in just equipping people. This curriculum is not taught. You're taught everything else of how to.
We're not taught life skills. We're not taught how to cope with life.
Yes,
that's true.
But the component of EI, like I said, would be a very small section, and I believe that. And one of the questions maybe I'll ask the viewers is, how much are you investing in your personal growth of your own soft skills? How often do you invest in that as much as you invest in the other technical skills? Because it's equally important. Growing yourself is a full-time job.
True.
Just as growing yourself in the skills and the things that you do is another full-time job.
So as we practice on we sit the exams and the courses, and we're learning golfing, are we working on ourselves and our skills as better people, more empathetic, better listeners?
Yeah. Sometimes it means putting yourself in difficult situations of maybe, for me, I always say difficult conversations is my Achilles heel. Yes.
I don't think anyone has fun with difficult conversations.
There are some who do them so well.
I find them so challenging.
Oh, they
it's like hearing we need to talk, and I'm like, wow.
Oh, they do it as an art. You're just looking like, wow. Then you're fumbling.
Mama, that is zen when you get there. When difficult conversations are a walk in the park.
That's my goal. When I will not really react, and I'll be able to handle it with, I don't know, like a rock star.
Do rock stars have difficult conversations?
Yeah. I think, yeah.
So I think what we can take home is it's a growing journey.
Yes.
It is not impossible. Everyone can and should get better, but you have to want to do it, and you have to commit to it. The same way you want to be very good in judo or chess or whatever, we have to work at it.
Yes.
It has to be worked on continuously,
yes.
Even when you don't want to.
If you want to be effective, if it's important. Again, that thing of, is it important enough to you?
Well, if things are missing in my life, okay, yeah, you have to want to make that decision. Which goes again to EI. Are you determined to do it? So if people want to get in touch and find out exactly how they can improve and, get to understand themselves better, especially, if you're trying to be a good leader, or you're looking at, you're seeing your career path and you've planned it in the new year, how I want to hit this spots by this time. What should they do? How do they talk to Profiles?
So they can reach out to us, Profiles International. Our websites are profiles.co.ke. Our pages are Profiles International EA across LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, no, we're not on TikTok. Maybe we are. Twitter, info@profiles.co.ke. And of course, you can WhatsApp us on 0722 45 7777, and directly through Mwehaki or I in our social media handles. If you want to go through some EI coaching or assessments, we can assist as well.
So you've preempted me. I was going to say, so what other services? So yes, you offer assessments. So
coaching, training.
Coaching, training,
and we also do offer certification for persons who, you're a consultant, you're a trainer or facilitator, and you're interested in delivering content around emotional intelligence. So we have a credential called Genos International that gives you the assessments and the programs that you need to be able to conduct a meaningful and effective facilitated session or a development plan, whether it's for an individual or an organization.
So there you go.
Or even coaching.
Coaching. There we go. So This was EI Simplified, the podcast. We're looking forward to hosting you at the next episode.
Thank you, Muihaki.
Thank you.